Welcome to Telltale Books, and I'm going to do the next in my Robert Silverberg series. This is only my second video, but this is his third work because his very first work I can't get a hold of at all. So this is everything I can get my hands on by Robert Silverberg, and so I can't get my hands on the first one, so I had to go right to number 2 and now number 3, of course. And you're going to notice I'm shooting these all on one night because I read a whole bunch of stories in like an hour. And I'm doing videos on them. A lot of these early stories that these authors did are extremely short enough to call them flash fiction. And they're interesting stories, but I can hardly say anything about them without spoiling them for you. So I am looking forward to getting into some meatier, bigger, more involved, at least novellas and novels of all these authors so that I can talk at greater length about them without giving everything away. Because these really short stories, how to make a really short story like flash fiction work. The best thing to do is come up with an idea that doesn't really involve all the big details of writing a novel. It doesn't involve lots of intense characterization, doesn't involve a lot of characters. It maybe involves one or two characters. It doesn't require a whole lot of world building or setup, and doesn't require a whole lot of introduction to the science going on. People don't like info dumps, but you still have to have some way of working it in, what kind of science people are dealing with in this far future world. So you show, don't tell. I get that, but you still have to show, and that still takes time. It still takes up words, and you don't have the words in a work of flash fiction or short story to be able to do all that. So these stories only work when you can keep them really simple and direct and get right to your point. And you have to have an idea for the story that's conducive to that, something that will carry the story, where people won't need all that other stuff. The story will interest them just on the punch of that final twist or whatever. Okay, so in talking about these stories, it's real hard because it would be so easy to just spoil every one of these for you. And so I have to kind of dance around that and try and do this in a way that I'm not going to spoil the story for you. And so I've got a whole bunch, I've hit a whole bunch of them, going through progressively. I'm at a stage where I'm just running into a whole bunch of these things with the different authors. Sturgeon and Wells and Stephen King and this one by Robert Silverberg. It's called The Silent Colony, and it was published in the October 1954 issue of Future Science Fiction magazine. And I think I have a copy of this on order, but I don't have it at the time that I'm shooting this, so otherwise I'd hold it up. But I'll probably, Silverberg didn't make the cover anyway, so oh well. But I did purchase a copy of that issue of Future and have it on the way. But otherwise, I read this story in volume 1 called To Be Continued of the Collected Stories of Robert Silverberg. This is, a 9-volume series, I believe, that was published by Subterranean Press starting in 2006. You can still get trade paperback copies of these volumes, but these nice red volumes you have to get used. So this is volume 1, his earliest works, and it's the collected stories, because it's not all of his stories. There's a lot of stuff that isn't in this book from the early days of Silverberg, but there's a lot of it that is in there. And the Silent Colony is in this book. So what's it about, you ask? Well, you have these immortal beings that can travel through space without the need of spaceships or spacesuits or any other technology. They can just drift through space, and they've got all of time to do it. So they just drift, and they happen to come upon Earth, and they can sense life, and they can sense whether that life is like them. And so in coming across Earth, they're sensing that, yes, there are creatures on Earth that are like them. So they come down to Earth to investigate. And that's where I got to stop. Now, in the introduction in To Be Continued, Robert Silverberg mentions that he was really taken with Robert Sheckley's work at this time. And so this being his third story, he purposely tried to do a story in Sheckley's style. And he felt he was pretty successful. I agree. I think this is pretty successful in capturing that essence of what Robert Sheckley was doing. And it's an interesting and fun story. It really is an enjoyable read. Like I say, you have to like a story that just gets down to the nitty gritty and doesn't give you all the extras that you get out of a full novel. But if you can get into stories like that, if you can get into flash fiction, then this is a really good example. And worth reading, So if you like flash fiction, if you like Twilight Zone-esque twist endings, if you like, if you're a fan of 1950s science fiction, or you just love Robert Silverberg and want to read everything that he's read, The Silent Colony is for you. I wouldn't give this top tail status, but it's pretty good. It's enjoyable. And I'll stop with that. So leave your comments, of course. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and come on back for more. This is only number 3 for Silverberg, and he wrote, my bibliography list goes up to 741. So I got a lot of videos to make. And a lot of stuff to track down. I've read Silverberg, but not everything. And so, especially when it comes to his early short stories, there's a lot of those I haven't read. So I'll be busy tracking them down and coming back and reporting on them. Though I may skip a lot of the erotic novels that he did in the early 1960s. I have purchased a handful of those. I don't know if I'll bother trying to get them all. It depends. We'll see how I feel about it. But, it's problematical because they are pornography. Even though they're pretty soft core, being written in the early 60s, it still is pornography. And so I don't know just how deep I want to get into that. And that'll cut out probably 300 of the 700 pieces. But he still did write a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and he's still alive. He's still with us. I don't think he's writing anything except his columns he has a column every month in Asimov's Science Fiction magazine, but otherwise I don't think he's writing anymore. But he is still alive and still active, so one of the last of those still with us. Anyway, I hope you'll join me for the next video.